Hey there! I just got back from a trip to the Galapagos Islands, which are a magical place off the coast of Ecuador, and it was an amazing time. But before I unpack everything, I figure I'd make this video for all of you to show you all the gear that I brought and used. So I'll talk about bags that I brought, the cameras, the lenses, tripods, accessories, all that kind of stuff. Now, I do want to mention that all of the stuff I'm going to be talking about will be listed in the description down below. So if you want to pick up any of this gear or look at it in more detail, again, all those links will be down below. So if you're looking to do a trip like this, international travel, wildlife, that sort of thing, or if you're just curious about the kind of gear that I shoot with nowadays, then this video is definitely going to be for you. Now, to give you a little bit of a context about this trip, it was a total of 10 days, 7 of which I spent on a ship in the Galapagos. We were cruising around, and then every day they would take us out on dinghies to go for hikes and do some exploration and shoot wildlife and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't a photography-based trip, but every day we'd make adventures from the ship. So that's give you a little bit of context about that. So anytime that you're looking to do airplane travel, especially international, you have to be really careful with the bags that you bring in terms of the number of bags, how big they are in terms of size and weight, and you just want to make sure that everything's going to work when you get there. And so there were a lot of different there was 3 airplanes I had to take to get there and lots of other transportation, so I had to be really careful about that. So the strategy I used here was I had one checked bag, which was a normal, just larger size suitcase that could be up to 50 pounds. So what I put in there in terms of camera gear, I put my tripod and tripod head in there because they're fairly large, but they do fit when you take them apart, and they're also kind of heavy. So in that bag with the tripod and tripod head were all of my clothes. So the 2 bags that I took on the airplane, I had a carry-on and a personal item. So you have to, again, be very careful about the size of those. You can see those back here. I'll talk about both of those bags and show you everything that's in them in 1 second. So the carry-on bag, this one over here, is a roller type bag, and that bag has all of my camera equipment in it, and it's padded, and it's a really nice way to transport things. And this bag over here was my personal item, which would fit under the seat. I also used that bag as the one that I used to pack for daily excursions from the ship. So when I'd go out for the day, I'd pack that up. So in that bag, while I was doing the airplane travel and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't full, and it had mostly like chargers and just stuff for the travel for those days and that kind of thing. So let me grab the roller bag and show you what's in it. So this is the roller bag that I use as my carry-on item, and huge thanks to Lowepro for sending me out this bag so I could test out and review it and share my experience with all of you. Also made my trip so much more enjoyable having a dedicated roller bag for camera gear. So I will talk more about the bag specifically, but let's talk about what's in the bag first, because I think that's what you're probably most curious about. So here's the front of the bag, and like I said, I will go into the bag in more depth, but you do have straps here to strap things on the front, like a tripod or whatever. But the one thing is here, there's a zipper pocket here, and in here you can put a laptop and smaller stuff in here. So my laptop in here, I actually kept it in a separate padding because I felt that there wasn't a ton of padding in the top here. So this is my 14-inch M3 Max MacBook Pro. Love this. So obviously, I didn't have great internet access, but I was able to review some footage and use it as a general computer and do some light editing and stuff like that. Now, opening this up, this has 2 sections. So it has the main outer section, and then you have this inner pouch thing that has all of the gear in it. So there's another zipper here. So just to show you on the outside here, I keep extra Peak Design anchors and headphones. I always bring a pair of wired headphones because they come in handy and they're very light. In here, we have Zeiss lens wipes. I love these things. Always keep these things around. And then I also have a sensor cleaning kit that I brought just in case. Now, part of it is that when you're in a remote place like that, you can't just go to a camera store. So you make sure you bring everything you need and bring backups and those sorts of things. So getting into the main compartment here, you can see it's really tight and really well packed. So let's go through this because this is the fun stuff. First of all, cameras. Let's start with that. So the main camera was the Canon R1. Now, I got this camera somewhat recently, and I will make a first impressions video on it and share a bunch of footage. I did already post one video from the trip, and I will be posting more, so I'll leave those linked down in the description below. As I post them, I'll add them in there, so you can definitely check out some of the footage, and I will talk more about this camera. It was absolutely fantastic. As most of you know, I'm mainly a videographer. I did take some photos, but the R1 was awesome. I really loved it. I use this probably 95% of the time. Now, the second camera is this one here, and this is the Canon C80. Now, this is kind of a weird camera to bring as like a B camera, but I really wanted to get some experience shooting wildlife in some really pretty locations with this, and I just wanted some really cool footage with the C80, so I brought this. Now, I really wanted to bring the Canon R5 Mark II as my backup camera, but I wanted to bring the C80 as well. And the only reason I was able to talk myself into bringing the C80 was my wife was with me, of course, and she had her Canon R8 and RF 100 to 400. So I did have a backup hybrid camera just in case something happened. We all had sort of backups for, we had backups for each other. Otherwise, if I didn't have that camera, I probably would have brought the R5 II as a backup to my R1. So those are the cameras. In terms of lenses, if you are familiar with this channel, you know how much I love this lens. This is the Canon RF 100 to 500. This lens is absolutely amazing. And if you're curious about why it's black, I have a skin on here from AlphaGuard. I use it to protect the lens. Now, if you've ever been to the Galapagos, you'll know this, but the animals don't care how close you get to them. You have to, be respectful and not disturb them, but you don't need a super long lens. And I'd heard this before I went, and so I didn't bring anything beyond 500. And so this was great. This lived on my camera 98% of the time. Now, the other lens I brought, which is probably no surprise to a lot of you, is the RF 24 to 70. This is a great all-purpose lens, f2.8, stabilized. This lens comes with me pretty much every time I travel and on most gigs and that sort of stuff. Now, I wish I had used this lens more. The only problem is when you're out and about and you're moving quickly. A lot of the hikes I was doing and stuff, we were moving along pretty quickly. It wasn't a photo-oriented trip, so I didn't have time to change it. I probably would have liked to shoot more with this to get more establishing shots and things like that, but I wasn't able to deal with two cameras and all that kind of stuff at the time, and I didn't switch lenses and all that kind of stuff. So the 100 to 500 lived on my camera most of the time. So that's the main thing, cameras, lenses. The other lens I threw in here just kind of for fun is the Helios 44-2. I picked up this recently, and I had a little bit extra space in my bag, and it's fairly light. And I spent a day in Guayaquil, which is the financial capital sort of Ecuador, and I wanted to get out and get a bunch of shots with something different. I like using manual focus lenses for street video and stuff. So, but the weather wasn't great that day. But anyways, I brought this in here, and I have a basic RF adapter on there, just because I thought it would be fun, and I didn't want to carry around a huge lens when we were walking around the city and that sort of stuff. Okay, in terms of chargers over here, this is the R1 charger, and if you ever use an R1, R3, 1DX camera, you know this charger is absolutely massive. It works great. I debated not taking this because you can charge the R1 directly over USB, but the problem is I would be coming in from an excursion. We have a quick turnover. I want to just grab a charge battery and get back out there. And so I also realized I'd have like a desk in the cabin. So I was able to just set this up and just drop batteries in there, and it was kind of nice to bring. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't have brought it just because it's so big, but anyways, I did bring that. Also had to bring the charger for the C80 because you can't charge that camera you can't charge the battery directly in the camera. You actually have to bring a charger with you. So I had to bring this, and then the brick and the cable and all that stuff. So had to bring all these chargers. Well, I didn't have to bring this, but it turned out to work pretty well. Now, in the rest of this package here, we have this is a case from Nisi, and I have filters in here. I have ND filters and polarizer. I have a couple extra ND filters. I did bring a couple extras just in case. Like I said, out in the middle of the ocean, if anything happens, you have what you have. So if I did scratch something or whatever, I didn't want to ruin it. This is kind of a trip that I didn't want to lose any footage or have any gear malfunctions and that sort of stuff. So filters, and this is the microphone that I bring with me all the time. This is the Sennheiser MKE 400. It's small, it sounds great, it has double wind protection. I didn't actually use it that much, and mainly because when we were doing these hikes and things, there was a lot of people. There was like a group of people, somewhere between 12 and 15 people, and everyone's talking. And so I didn't wind up capturing audio. I wish I had, but again, it wasn't a photo trip. So there wasn't really sort of the same level of stuff going on there. And then I always bring a multi-tool. This one's from Small Rig. I like this. Always bring a multi-tool of some sort with you. Up here, these are the batteries for the R1. I found this random case on Amazon. And if you've ever tried to find a case for the bigger batteries, it's kind of tricky. So these will hold the batteries for the R1. And you could also put other large batteries in here, like drone batteries and things like that. Drones weren't allowed in the Galapagos without special permits. So I didn't even think about bringing a drone, but I do like this. I brought 2 batteries with me. It was more than enough. I probably only needed 1. So like I said, you really don't need a very long lens in the Galapagos, but I always, whenever I'm doing wildlife stuff or travel, I bring this. This is my 1.4 times teleconverter, the Canon RF1, and I didn't use this one time. I wish I had left it at home because it is like weighs about a pound, but it is pretty small. And then under here is the extra battery for the C80, the BPA-30N. So that was over here. This pouch here is a really cool pouch made by Think Tank. They make a few of these. I think they're called the EDC pouches, and they're different sizes. And in here was all of my memory stuff. So I was really careful about all the stuff that I was gonna be using for storage because I didn't wanna lose any data. I wanted to make sure I had enough storage with me. So the 2 main things I wanna talk about here are, I have 2 Samsung 4 terabyte T9s. You can see they're labeled A and B here. And basically when I would dump a card, I would dump it onto both of these and have simultaneous, dual backup. So I didn't delete anything off my cards. I had those. So I basically had 3 copies of every file that I captured. I didn't want to lose anything. So I also brought a pro grade card reader. This one is the one that's combo CF Express B and SD, even though I can read SD cards directly in my laptop. And then this is all the cards. I'm a huge fan of ProGrade, so I brought a mixture of SD cards and CF Express A cards, CF Express B cards. So ProGrade, these are the 256 gig V90 cards. I just started picking up the Iridium cards. These are a little bit faster and will be replacing the normal ones. I recommend ProGrade V90 SDs for those sort of situations, like in your C80. And then I also had 2 different ProGrade CF Express B cards, so the 512 gold, and then I'm starting to upgrade to the Iridium cards, which are the sort of newer ones, but they're still selling the gold ones. They're just a little bit cheaper. They're a little bit slower, but both work fine for the R1. And the nice thing here was this all sort of folded up nice and compact, and this was all of my memory stuff. So this would just live in here, so when I was ready to do a backup or dump some footage, this all sits right in here. So now that I showed you everything in the bag, I'm actually gonna take this stuff out because I wanna show you a couple things about the bag specifically before I talk about the other stuff. So now that I have the bag all emptied out, I wanna talk about the quality of the bag and the design features and also my user experience after packing with this bag and traveling with it for 10 days. So first of all, the exterior of the bag is made out of this really nice material that feels very rugged. I do also like the color of it. I don't personally like the bright orange straps. I think it makes it look a little bit flashy, and generally in my life, I don't like to be flashy, but also when I travel, I don't want to attract attention to me, especially when you're traveling internationally in some areas where I generally don't like to have stuff that screams. I have a lot of expensive camera gear because this was full of a lot of camera gear. So the straps here are nice. You can strap things on like I was talking about before, and they have this really cool mechanism here for the straps. So of course you have the normal buckles here, and then to adjust the length, you have this thing where you pull it up. You can adjust the length of it, and then it snaps closed. I really like that implementation. It's nice. Like I said before, you do have this sleeve up here for putting, laptops and tablets and small things. You have a zipper pocket here. Also, you have another pocket up here, which is pretty small. So a bunch of little things you can put in there. I just worried about putting too much in the top because it'll get too thick and then they might get unhappy with me as a carry-on. It also does have a rain cover that's built in. One thing it's attached here, so you can't actually get rid of it. So you do have to keep that in mind that it does live in there unless you wanted to cut it off, which I didn't want to do. Now the bag does pull really easily around the airport. It has these 2 nice big wheels on the bottom that spin very nicely, and the handle telescopes out, and it is bright orange as well. So you'd have to be okay with that too. Again, it is a little flashier than I would personally like. Now, one thing I want to point out was this got damaged, and I noticed this after our first flight. So this would only been used one time. It was a carry-on item. It would never been checked. I noticed this at the first airport that it was already damaged like that. So I didn't have nothing broke, but I was surprised that just after one flight, it already had this. And I'm pretty careful with my stuff, especially when it's full of expensive camera gear. But these wheels are nice, and it was very comfortable to pull it around the airport. It also does have this here on the bottom here. You can see it's already scratched up quite a bit, so when the bag stands up. So why do you want a roller bag in general? Well, it's really nice because these get really heavy, and when you're going around the airport, you can just pull it behind you. Super nice. So that's kind of the exterior. I do also want to mention that there are grab handles. So, it is pretty nice on the outside. Now let's open this up. And like I was saying before, it does sort of have two sections. And I personally don't love this. I know this gives you a little bit more flexibility to use the bag for other things because you can take this thing out, this like camera cube, and then you have a bag for use for other things. There's a pocket here. So the one thing about this is without the pouch in here, or the camera cube, whatever it's called, this is pretty flimsy. This isn't as sturdy as like a normal carry-on bag. So I just want to point that out too. Now, one thing about the design, which I think is kind of weird, but of course you have the handle, all the mechanics from the handle are here, so it sticks up into the bag. And then this pouch here, the camera cube, you can see that it is curved up. So this curve right here is supposed to, you know, offset that hardware there. But when you put it in, you can see here that it actually sticks up higher than the outside zipper of the bag. And so it's just, I think they should have designed it a little bit better, and that this inner camera cube should have come up a little bit more on the inside. It just doesn't fit exactly right. That stuff kind of bothers me, but in practice it was fine. Everything worked great. Now inside you do have this sort of setup, and again you can see how maybe you can see how it curls up a little bit here. And so these long dividers, what I wanted to do was sort of set it up like this, and then just divide, because, you know, I was taking the lenses off of the cameras. The problem is, as you can see here, the divider also sticks up too high because the inside section curls up. So it has to live over here, otherwise you wouldn't be able to close it. So these padded dividers are nice. They gave you plenty of them. There's more that are not in here. And yeah, the inside worked great. I got all that camera gear in there like you saw. So I just want to give you some, you know, overview of this bag and let you know my experience with it. Again, huge thanks to Lowepro for sending this out and helping me out with my really cool trip. So this is the personal item, or the backpack that I use to fit under the seat, and also I'd use on daily excursions. This is the Compagnon 20-liter element bag. Now, they sent this to me a while ago along with their 30-liter element bag, and I made a full review of the 30-liter element, and I'll leave that video linked down below. I love their bags. I use them all the time. I don't use the 20-liter often, but I might wind up using a little bit more. The 30-liter doesn't always fit in every seat on under every seat on every airplane, so this one I knew was much smaller and definitely would. Also, I knew with a smaller bag, I would put less stuff in it for the daily excursions, and it would be lighter. So this bag worked out great. Again, not going to go through the whole bag, but it's really nice because we have straps, a large water bottle holder, another set of straps on this side where you can put a tripod, and then it has a roll top, which is fantastic for travel, especially when you're hiking or in airports. You can just throw whatever you want in the top and it'll expand up as you go. So if you want to add more, you can just open it up, put more stuff in it. So I love roll top bags. They give you a lot of extra room. So let's take a look inside the bag here. And remember, this is how it was for just general travel. This isn't for excursions. I actually emptied all the stuff out of the bag and I just put what I needed in for that day. So camera, lens, extra battery filters, those sorts of things. So this is how I was I just came home from my trip. So this is what it looks like. So it's a little disorganized here, but it's not completely full. There's actually there's extra room in here. The first thing is this charger, and I just picked this up recently. And the reason I picked this up was I've been on a cruise ship before where there are very few outlets and they don't let you bring a power strip. Now there was no issue with that whatsoever, but the nice thing about this is you have 100 watts on the bottom, USB-C, USB-A, and you also have 2 pass-through AC ports, so you can plug other things into it. Again, I don't think this would count as a power strip, and it does come with a really nice cable that's in here somewhere. And this was awesome. So this would just sit on the desk, and then I actually plugged in my 2 chargers into this, the 2 camera chargers, and I had pretty much everything I needed. In addition to that, I also brought an Anker 150 watt charger, and this one could zip up anything really quickly and gives us a whole bunch more ports. You can plug this directly into the wall, or you can also plug this into this, and then it's all in one plug, so that's really handy. In this other section here, again, random stuff. I have some extra tripod plates. I have my Peak Design strap, rocket blower, microfiber cloths, so that's kind of in this section. Like I said, kind of a mess in here. I always bring at least one small V-mount battery to charge accessories while we're traveling, so phones, tablets, whatever. Usually I just carry one and then the kids wind up stealing it, but I gave them one too. So I just brought a 50 watt hour. I didn't actually wind up using this very much, but it's just a real peace of mind. Like, so if your phone dies, you know you can zip up your phone. So I always bring at least a small USB bank or V mount, because this has, you know, USB-C, USB-A on the top, so it's really nice to travel with that. This is a bag just full of cables. Of course, you have to have a bunch of cables with you, USB-C, USB-A, lightning, all that sort of stuff. I brought my Pocket 3 with me with the mini mic. I did use this for a few shots here and there, and it's just such a nice thing to throw in your bag. I knew I wasn't trying to make like a travel vlog, but sometimes this can come really in handy and just get a couple pickup shots. And you can also hand this to someone to take B-roll of you or something else. It's just so easy to use. So I always take this with me when I travel because it's so small. Next is my binoculars, which I picked up somewhat recently. I've been meaning to get a good pair. These are the Nikon Monarch 5s, and these are great. My wife has a pair of Monarch 5s she's had for a long time, and so these have been awesome. I've been trying to take these out more when I go birding locally, but a lot of times just on the ship or when you're hiking or whatever, it's really nice to have a pair of binoculars. So I think it's worth starting to carry a pair with me. And so I like them. These are my headphones I've been using lately for travel. And these are the Bose, I forget what they're called, they're noise cancellation. Like I said, links will be for everything in the description. And the nice thing too here is there is a cable, so you can plug these in if you want to edit with them. There won't be any latency, and the noise cancellation is really good. Lastly, up here in the laptop sleeve is my iPad, and I picked this up fairly recently. This is an M4 11-inch iPad Pro. I love watching movies and shows when I'm traveling. It just makes the time go by really quickly, and the screen on this thing is absolutely incredible. The other thing I use this for is you can plug this into your laptop and use this as an extra screen. And in DaVinci Resolve, you can use this as a preview. You might be able to do that in some of the other editors. But I find that the colors on this are really accurate, and there's a reference mode, and so I can actually really take a look at footage that's a lot larger. So I'll just plug this into my laptop, and then I'll have like a 2 monitor setup when I'm on the go, because my laptop's a 14-inch. So this doubles for both editing work, preview work, and then also for just entertainment. So I really love the screen on that. It's absolutely fantastic. So that's this bag. So lastly, let's talk about tripods. I love shooting handheld video and just walking around with a camera in my hands, and it's just very freeing and very easy and very quick and very nimble. But lately I've been using a tripod a lot more because obviously it increases the quality of your work, getting really stable shots. In addition to that, when you are doing wildlife videography, it's really important to have a pretty heavy-duty tripod. The reason for that is you're probably gonna have a big camera and lens on there, a video head like this, and you also want to have stiffer legs that will absorb a lot of the vibrations from panning and tilting and wind and stuff like that. So it is a little bit of a commitment, and it is heavy and large, but having a big stiff tripod can be really helpful when doing wildlife videography. So huge thanks to B&H Photo, who sent me these tripods to test out and share my experiences with all of you. These are a brand called Robus. This is one of the B&H's house brands, and this is the 8860 and this is the 5558. Now these tripods are a little bit different from each other. They have a whole series of different tripods on there. This is a series 5, so this is one is a little bit thicker in terms of the size of the tube. Also, it will carry more weight, although I wasn't anywhere close to the weight capacity of these tripods. This is a Series 3. You can see how it is. It's a smaller diameter, and of course, it'll take less weight. So I really do like the Series 5. It's very reassuring when you're using it. It's nice and sturdy. This is a 3-section tripod. You can see there's 2 adjustment points here, so there's 3 sections, and this one is a 4-section tripod, so you have 3 tightening and loosening adjustments here. Now I prefer to have a 3-section because it's just faster to operate, and speed is the name of the game when you're doing wildlife. So I actually wanted to bring this one because it's a little smaller and lighter, and also was a 3-section, but unfortunately this didn't fit in my check bag. It was a little bit too long. So of course that's the main advantage of having more sections, is it collapses a little bit smaller. So one thing that's really cool about these tripods is the ability to either use a screw-on head like this, or with a flat base, or use a 75mm bowl, and it comes with these. So it's pretty easy to swap them out. You just loosen this right here. You pull this little knob, and this comes out. And then you can pop this in if you want a bowl. So that's pretty handy. So I was using a bowl, so let me talk about that system over here. So having a good video head is important when you're doing wildlife videography, and I've personally owned the Sackler Flowtech with the FSB forehead for several years now, I think about 4 years. I absolutely love it. I love Sackler products, so I decided to pick up a Sackler head for wildlife video. This is the Sackler Ace XL Mark II, and it's one of Sackler's entry-level fluid heads, but it's a lot lighter, and that's why I wanted it. Otherwise, I would have gotten probably a more expensive one. So I purchased this one because it's lighter, and this just starts to add up very quickly, especially when you put it on the side of your bag and you're hiking for a while. So this is a 75mm bowl. Now, I do want to point out something with my experience with this. It wasn't specifically an issue with the head, but after I loosen this, let me show you. When I take this off, what I noticed was that you can see here that these marks developed around the bowl, and I'm not sure if that's an issue with the Sackler head or with the, the top part of the Robust tripod. So I'm not really sure what's to blame here, but I have to sort of figure this out. This is marked up quite a bit, and it's not just like a smudge or dirt mark. You can actually feel it. So you can kind of feel it a little bit when you're adjusting the bowl. So I don't know, again, I don't know if it's an issue with the Sackler head or maybe the tripod, but I just wanted to point that out. Also with this tripod, I lost one of the feet pretty early on in the trip. So the feet do unscrew, and it comes with spikes you can screw on. I don't know if it just wasn't screwed in all the way or I wasn't paying attention, but you can see here that I lost one of the feet. I was shooting on the beach and on, dirt and stuff or rocks, so it wasn't a huge deal, but it's kind of annoying that I lost that. Now, also I noticed that sometimes when it was either wet or a little bit warmer, these are really nice rubber grips on here, but this is plastic underneath here, which is what makes makes it tight. And sometimes I turn this and it was just slipping a little bit, so you have to really squeeze to turn it. So these are a lot cheaper than the tripods that are they're kind of modeled after, in my opinion, like ones from Pro Media Gear and Gitzo and those sort of like heavy duty tripods, which cost like 3 or 4 times as much. Overall, it did the job fine. I just had those little concerns I wanted to point out to you. All right, so that wraps it up. There was a lot of gear I mentioned during this video. It took me a long time to decide on all of this stuff and what to bring with me on this trip. So I wanted to share my experience with all of you and let you know what I brought. And realistically, I was pretty happy with what I brought. I think, all the preparations and thinking through and doing research and stuff has really helped. And in terms of the bags and different things I brought, everything worked out pretty well. So hopefully this is helpful for you if you're looking to do a trip like this, or maybe just curious the stuff I'm shooting with. There'll be a lot more wildlife stuff on this channel, also a whole bunch of tutorials and reviews and stuff like that coming up. So if you're interested in that, please hit subscribe. Otherwise, please check out the links down below. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.